Skyfall. So Skyfall is another Bond film in the Daniel Craig era. It's released back in 2012. When a mission goes awry, it sends Bond off the grid. Meanwhile, MI6 is facing a threat from an unknown cyber terrorist who's stolen intel from MI6, which reveals all of their undercover agents. When the cyber terrorist starts costing lives and gets too close to MI6 for comfort, it springs Bond back into action in order to help. And we've got our movie. I'm gonna be honest, I've never felt this conflicted about a movie before. There's some good to it, there's some bad to it, and there's just a lot in between. There's not really a whole lot about this movie that's remarkable in either sense, but if you're a Bond fan, there's something for you to love in here. If you're not a Bond fan, that's where things might get a little bit murky. Starting off with what I really enjoyed about this movie. The film is very easy to follow. Movies like Bond or other spy films can get very convoluted and confusing, which can really alienate your audiences early on. However, this movie does not run into that problem at all. The plot and objective are very clear from beginning to end. There is some slight evolving that goes on as the movie progresses, but that inevitably keeps the audience engaged and entertained. It gives us some variety to really latch on to. Also, I really enjoyed the performances in this movie between Daniel Craig, Judi Dench, and Javier Bardem. The three of them are at the front and center of the majority of this film, and each of them brings something unique to the character that makes them likable. Daniel Craig as Bond is the action hero that we've all come to know and love, and he maintains a gritty, resilient, albeit bitter personality that's ultimately relatable. Judi Dench crushes it as M in just about every Bond movie she's in, and that continues in Skyfall. A lot of the story in this movie actually does revolve around M, and Judi Dench has no problem rising to that challenge in a very feisty and witty performance. She does a great job of conveying the emotional yet logical reasoning behind M's decisions as a character. It's nearly the perfect marriage of performance and character brought into one. Javier Bardem plays the unconventional character villain in this movie and does a great job of bringing a quirkiness to the character. Bardem's character ultimately faces hardship, which inevitably turns him into a villain like we've seen many times before, but he does a great job of bringing the pain that the character feels into the delivery of his dialogue and really elevates the villain. Also, this movie has plenty of fun action. If you're a Bond fan who's looking for some great hand-to-hand combat, chase sequences, you won't be disappointed here. There is an ample amount of that. But what I really like about the way Skyfall did it is it uses some different techniques in order to bring some variety into it. For example, there's one scene early on in the movie where it really plays off of reflections and it being dark outside in order to bring a very interesting take on Bond having a clash with a certain assassin. At one point, they're going at each other and I actually have no idea who's who, which adds a little bit of mystique and is to who is winning and who's not. It's kind of fun. Keeps you on your toes as an audience member, and I think the movie utilized that effectively. Also, there are some good flashes of character exposition in Skyfall. We get a peek behind the curtain of the characters of M and Bond that I don't recall seeing before. In the case of Bond, we get a glimpse into his childhood and just a little hint of how he feels about it. And that helps me as an audience member get even more on board with Bond as a character because it allows me to draw my own personal connections and conclusions about him personally and really helps me get emotionally invested and on board and rooting for him. And the same can be said for M in this movie. With her long tenure at MI6, she's had to make some very big decisions that have cost lives, and she's had to go ahead and reap not only the rewards and benefits, but also the drawbacks to that. Some of those things come up in this movie, and when she's trying to explain her rationale behind it, you understand it, you get on board with it, and you really get a glimpse as to what the price of leadership can be when it's all resting on her shoulders, and it's really eye-opening. Now getting into what I didn't like so much about this movie, the pacing is incredibly slow at times. Through the initial action sequence that comes in this movie, there is a lot of build-up to the point where I'd almost call this movie a slow burn because it just comes to a screeching halt for 30 to 40 minutes as it's building up to finally getting introduced to our antagonist and really the overall threat of the film. And in that 30 to 40 minute build-up, it's a lot of gathering clues, finding out what's going on, getting Bond into things, getting everybody up to speed, and it just takes a really long time. And honestly, I thought a lot of it was just unnecessary. Also, I did find this movie pretty boring for a little bit too much of the time. There just isn't quite enough action in this film or really very interesting villains, characters to really keep it entertaining throughout the entire experience. I mean, Javier Bardem gives a great performance, but I don't think his villain was really all that strong anyway to carry this movie. They make him out to be a cyber terrorist, but there's nothing in this movie that really indicates as to why he's so good in that particular domain. It doesn't really make sense. I feel like there's a missed opportunity there to make the villain ultimately just more exciting in general. But what else made this movie kind of boring was the fact that going along with that slow buildup, right when the slow buildup ends, you just get a small taste of action, then you get more slow buildup, then you get another small taste of action, and that cadence just kind of continues throughout the movie until it finally starts to pick up later on in the second half. And then by then it finally reaches some consistent action that blends in well with dialogue, and it finally hits that sweet spot, which is nice. I'd compare it to stop and go traffic on the freeway. Just when you think that you are free and clear and you're gonna go 80 the rest of the way on your trip, you hit another traffic jam. It's just heartbreaking. And that's what I compare it to when it comes to this movie. Lastly, this movie was a little bit too long. It had a runtime of about 2 hours, 30 minutes. With the really long build-up that they had and with the arc that they have for Bond in that time, I think they really could have cut this down to just under 2 hours or maybe just above 2 hours. And I think the movie would have been a lot better served in that regard. So my friends, if I gotta give this a score, this movie is a 6 out of 10. It's just okay. You can watch it on Hulu right now if you're a subscriber and you're interested. Friends, have you seen Skyfall? If so, what'd you think of it? You know where the comment section is. Let me know. Thanks so much for watching another Bankrupt Hippo movie review. Click right here if you're interested in seeing more. I've been Bryce. Until next time, have a great day.